anybody with a half a brain, especially if you're working in PR, would look at this and say, wait a second, we might have a problem here. If you lined up the picture of the Last Supper and a picture of that event, they line up pretty darn close. Even the number of individuals involved were right on the money.
Welcome to Hot Takes, brought to you by 50cupstea.com, where united we sip, discuss, and learn. Join us as we dive into the hottest takes on culture, business trends, and the threads that bind us. Get ready for inspiring stories, candid conversations, and a fresh perspective on living a healthy, fulfilled life. Grab your cup and tune in. Let's get started.
I'm Bill LuMaye. Welcome to 50 Cups Hot Takes with my good friend, Jim Baker. He's, of course, an author. If you haven't read the book, you really need to get it. He also is an entrepreneur, a very successful businessman, and he happens to be the owner of 50 Cup Tea Company. And I must say, ladies and gentlemen, first, let me say, hi, Jim. How are you? Good to see you.
How are you?
I'm so excited because last time we got together, you didn't have tea, and today you do. And there it says, I got to say for the folks, I mean, I've never been a tea drinker, but the tea has been wonderful to drink. And in addition to that, it makes you healthier, which just seems like too good to be true. So what do you have today?
Yeah, we have de-stress tea today, another herbal tea that is loaded with lots of different good things, some little peppermint, some ginger, some lemongrass, et cetera, et cetera. It's supposed to be able to calm you down a little bit. It's got a little chamomile in it as well. And we're going to need it. I need it at least, based on one of the hot topics we're going to talk about today. But it's nice and chilled. It's probably about 36 degrees at this point in time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yeah. I could have used this.
One of the things we've learned too, that especially in the summer months, is that teas make great mocktails.
Oh, really?
Yes. And they also make great cocktails. So as I think a lot of us, our potential alcohol consumption may increase in the summertime because we're just out being more social, et cetera, enjoying the evenings. We just recently wrote a blog. It's on the site at this point in time, but there's one really good green tea mocktail that we highly recommend. And, but like I said, all these teas go great with everything. You can drink them straight up. You can drink them hot. You can drink them cold. You can mix stuff with them. I like personally last time, I like having a little seltzer water with some of the tea every once in a while, make it more of like a soda.
Oh, I bet that would taste good.
And of course, for those out there that love the agaves and love the sugars, they can be sweetened. I obviously don't recommend that because I think they taste great on their own, but nonetheless, here's de-stress today. So hopefully you'll feel a little calmer when we're done.
Well, I'm already starting to mellow out. I got to say, it tastes great as well. And I guess I could set it up by saying this would have been a wonderful drink to have the opening night of the Olympics for many people.
Yeah, so that's probably the first hot take, we should talk about. And I understand that the IOC wants the host country to obviously introduce all the athletes from the different countries, discuss, through entertainment, the beauty of the Olympic Games, and also through entertainment, the history and the culture, of the host country. But for the life of me, other than the fact that the people that did the entertainment, talked a lot about promoting French fashion, which obviously they're probably the leading country in fashion in the world. When I first saw it, I did not correlate the Last Supper with the presentation, with the show. I thought it was just weird, to be honest with you. And then my second thought was, why in the world are they doing this in front of millions and millions of people? Couldn't they have talked about, the French people, the country has been around. It's gone through multiple changes through its history. It's given the world a lot of great things. Mm-hmm. And to me, I'm like, why wouldn't you take that opportunity, to promote yourself in that regard, as opposed to sending what I would call these woke messages that ended up, wrongfully so, attacking Christianity. And I guess Christianity seems to be throughout its history, has been the punching bag really for Hollywood and for pretty much everything.
I think you're right, Jim. I really don't understand. I guess I do understand in the sense that they wanted to present themselves as being inclusive, but it's also a family entertainment event. In fact, my daughter, who's in grade school, it was actually given an assignment to watch the Olympics. So the opening ceremony, I don't think was as conducive to that kind of family entertainment, except for the Smurf. The Smurf was a nice touch, but I don't understand why smart people would want to offend families, or in this case, Christians, which are in the billions. Doesn't make sense to me. What are your thoughts? Well, why? Why even go down this road?
I mean, if you listen to what they said, they didn't correlate, this show, this entertainment to the Last Supper. Now they're coming out, I guess, and they're saying, well, wasn't that? It might have been a Greek feast. I don't know.
Yes.
Maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, I don't know a lot about it other than there was some kind of a festival, a pagan festival back in the day that they celebrated. And then they did jump to that. But initially, their initial apology was one of, gee, sorry, we just wanted to be inclusive. We never thought this would offend anybody. And then they went to the Greek festival excuse. I don't know which one came first, but clearly, I think anybody with a half a brain, especially if you're working in PR, would look at this and say, wait a second, we might have a problem here. If you lined up the picture of the Last Supper and a picture of that event, they line up pretty darn close. Even the number of individuals involved were right on the money.
Yeah, one of the analyzers, I guess you could say, commentators on YouTube went through piece by piece of the segment, and he basically said at the end of the day, he wasn't defending them, but he said that, if the center female, I'm assuming,
Yes.
with the crown didn't have the crown on, then the crown he thought was the primary symbol that ended up, correlating this to the Last Supper. And if she wore a different hat, for example, or had no hat on, then he doesn't think it's as big of a deal. He didn't say it was in good taste. He didn't say that he would have recommended this for, the audience, but, he didn't see the fashion correlation either, especially since there weren't fashion models that were walking. I guess they shot it on a bridge. So it kind of, with the carpet in the middle there, it kind of looked like a runway. But clearly, fashion models weren't, highlighting these clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, one of the guys was blue and he had a beard and he had a Speedo on, I think. He had no clothes on.
Right.
So I have no idea what they were trying to, portray there.
I really don't know. It would seem to me that I guess you want to go for wow. You want people to be talking about it. And I know we live in an age, right, where it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or a non-Christian. Everybody seems to be looking at something and then finding the worst part about it and can be offended by it. But overall, the Olympics is, in my past anyway, has been an event where everybody comes together, families come together, we watch it. It was a very big deal. I don't know if that's so much the case nowadays, but it is still in my house. And I now go, you know what, we're going to make sure you're only watching the actual events now. And I just think that's a shame. We keep losing something, Jim, because people are trying to, I don't know what, prove a point, push a lifestyle. I'm not sure.
So I think in the old days, back in the Greek times, getting the communities together to have these games was supposed to foster
Peace, friendship. Yes.
Get to know people that you don't normally associate with. And this is pre everything, right? And, and that same theme, I thought, carried over to the modern age where we might be able to, if we get to know Russia or the USSR back in the old days better, maybe we won't fight with them. Maybe we won't be in conflict with them. As the Olympic Games are supposed to bring this united, just like United We Sip, this united, feeling where we're all together and we're competing honestly and as openly as possible and made the best person win. And so if the presentation or the entertainment was supposed to do that, it did the exact opposite. You basically infuriated 2 billion Christians in the entire world, assuming all these people actually watched the Olympic opening ceremonies, which I don't think they did.
No,
but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because of social media, but they did nothing to unite, the world in this situation.
But the other part was the Olympics, when we hated Russia, I guess we still hate Russia. I'm not sure. It changes all the time. But think of the Miracle on Ice with the hockey team. That was a great, you had that team to root for and that team to root against, and it was exciting. So the same back in Nazi Germany, when we had our runner.
Sure, Jesse Owens.
Yeah, the black runner. I mean, so it can make a really huge statement and change the world. It can. I'm not sure what we changed on opening night other than.
I don't know, but you asked a question before, like, why did they do that?
Why?
And I think the first world countries, and I think we lead in this case, unfortunately, we're so worried about secondary issues as opposed to primary issues. Number one, obviously, making sure people are safe, making sure that they have shelter, making sure that they have the ability to work and generate income to buy food, make sure that there's safe schools for our kids. Where I think China and, some of these emerging countries, they're focused on that. They're focused on being the best at some point in time.
Yes.
We're focused on these secondary issues that are basically eroding our culture and dividing our country. And ultimately, I think some of these other countries are looking at us and say, glad keep doing it, guys, because you know what? We're taking you over another, 75 or 100 years. Sad to say, and I think we're going to change. So I'm very optimistic that this is a pendulum that's going to go the other way. But there's no other explanation for it other than the fact that they either A, don't care, they're just simply tone deaf, and they just want to push their agenda. And if you don't like it, too bad. We'll kind of apologize, but we really won't. We'll kind of give you an explanation, but we really won't. And it is what it is. And, hey, we're doing it. And, but it did not unite anybody, I think, who was watching those Olympics.
No, I agree. And we seem to have that problem in almost everything nowadays. We don't get answers. We get a lot of questions, and then you get a lot of conspiracies and all kinds of stuff. When you watch the Olympics, there was something that was really, I don't know if you've seen either the quick little video clip or just the picture of this young woman. She's in blue on her knees in the boxing ring and crying.
She's crying, yeah.
Crying. I mean, she trained her whole life for this. And again, this is a decision made by the Olympics to put a man who claims to be a woman in the ring with her and accept that as fair. I thought we used to test for testosterone and all kinds of doping things during the Olympics. I remember that being big. This man hit her so hard twice that she gave up because she had never been hit that hard by anybody in her life. And this is something that is going to spread, already is with Title IX here in the country. The administration now has changed the rules so men can, or boys can, play with girls in that sense. Just a fundamental sense of fairness seems to me to be just common sense, Jim, but yet here we are. So you're a wise man. Why? Why is this even an issue?
Well, from the Olympic standpoint, I think it's a colossal lack of leadership. So basically what the IOC has said is each sport has its own governing body, and they've left the decisions on who can compete and who can't compete to those individual sports governing body. Right. So FIFA, for example, they'll run soccer in the Olympics. So they have a men's team, they have a women's team. They don't have a trans team. They don't have men playing with the woman. That's the rules, right? Boxing, for whatever reason, is allowing men to compete with females.
Unbelievable.
And somebody, unfortunately, is going to get severely injured or potentially killed at some point in time. And to me, that if you want to really do something, we can obviously, my opinion would simply be whatever you were born with, that's what you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to test you to make sure that if you're competing, you're within the limits of what a female testosterone is, for example, if that's what they're testing for, and what a male should be.
Mm-hmm.
Or go set up a third league,
another category,
where you have people transitioning and let them beat the heck out of each other, but they can't compete with traditional men and women. It's unfair to the females.
And that's what probably will be the big game changer out of the Olympics this time around.
You're very optimistic.
I'm making a prediction that this one little event may have a tremendous impact, well beyond what the organizers had envisioned with the opening games and being inclusive. This might waken some people to say, no, enough is enough.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
You optimistic about that?
No,
No, you're
because
not.
Olympics is a once in a 4-year event.
Right.
And as we know, in certain states in this country, boys are allowed to compete
Yes,
with
they are.
girls,
Unbelievable.
and the boys are winning.
Mhm.
And it doesn't seem like the school systems are doing anything about it. Colleges certainly are. The NCAA isn't. I think Leah Thomas, a swimmer from Penn, ended up winning everything, and he or she was ranked 470 something on the men's side before
But
she
Jim, you
did
have
transition.
daughters, right?
Yeah.
I have daughters. I'm going, for someone to put that kind of effort and training into being good at anything, and especially if you're good enough to maybe get a scholarship, from high school to college, and to have that taken from you by someone who shouldn't be there, I don't see that any different than doping up or doing things you are now illegally not able to do. The fact that they are just doing it because it's the politically correct thing to do is going to ruin a lot of girls' lives.
Yeah, it's
not right.
It's hypocritical, and it's obviously Lance Armstrong was stripped of his Tour de France titles because he was doping, because he had a unique advantage over everybody else. Barry Bonds, they don't even recognize him. He's a Hall of Famer, but because he took steroids, they don't recognize him at this point in time. So it's double standard. I mean, either get rid of all the rules and just make it a free for all.
Well, get rid of all the leagues. There shouldn't be a women's basketball team, that league. Just get rid of let them all play against, but we know ultimately how that would end.
But I think the original premise was to do it where give females the opportunity to compete amongst themselves, earn money, hopefully, be successful athletes, enjoy, the fruits of that. And, but now it's
turned on its head.
Yeah. And all of the guys I can't figure it out. I mean, it's all about inclusivity, but at the same token, you're going back, I think, to the pre-civil rights, women's rights era, because at the end of the day, we're taking away their abilities to be able to do things, their ability to have privacy in a bathroom, like all these other things that I don't think anybody thinks about.
Well, they will if they have a daughter. Hopefully.
I don't know.
Hopefully they will.
That.
And Lance Armstrong, put on a wig and a dress. You'll be okay. You'll get your trophies back. Man, I'm glad you brought this tea today, because this opening segment, I'm a little stressed out.
Yeah, hope YouTube doesn't censor us.
Excuse me a second. I'm gonna knock this one back. It's good.
All right. Well,
all right.
I don't think we can solve the problem, but
no. But I mean, it's still got some time to go, so we may talk about this again. Who knows?
Yes.
I love dogs. I'm not like the cat ladies that J.D. Vance pointed out. The childless cat ladies. But I love dogs. But you have that on your hot topic list, Jim, and I can't imagine what in the world you could be upset with when it comes to these wonderful companions.
Full disclosure, I absolutely love dogs too.
Okay, good.
All right. I had a dog for 13 and a half years. We put her down about a year ago. We loved her. She was a great companion to the family. A little bit kooky at times, especially around little kids. But nonetheless, we kept an eye on her, and she never hurt anybody.
Part of your family?
Oh, yeah. And so I love dogs. My daughter has a dog, phenomenal blonde lab, and I have no issue with dogs. I have issue with dog people.
Oh, ooh.
All right.
Okay. Good.
Case in point, I'm in a meeting yesterday in a hotel lobby. I'm sitting there and I see this person that looks like he's my age, and he's pushing a stroller. And my first thought was, oh, wow, he's taking one of his little grandkids. Maybe it's his kid. I don't know, because you have a young kid now, but he's taking his grandkids out for a little stroll. And as he gets closer.
Wait a second. Do I look old to you people? Yeah, I do. They're all shaking their head. Yeah, you got a little kid. Go ahead. Yes. Okay. So it might have been his daughter.
Right. So I'm thinking, okay, to take a granddaughter, daughter, whatever.
Yep.
There's a child in there. And as he gets close to me and goes by me, it's not a child. It's a dog.
A dog.
In the stroller, little fluffy, poodle-ish kind of dog in the stroller. And the owner, I guess, I assume he's the owner, is taking the dog out for a walk. So I'm thinking to myself, a guy.
The owner, a guy.
Yeah. His wife probably told him, go take the dog out. So he popped the dog in the little stroller and he's going to take her for...
Exactly what a guy would do.
So then I'm thinking, well, wait a second. They're in a hotel lobby.
Mm-hmm.
He's dressed in t-shirts and shorts. So my guess is this hotel is not like next to the Starbucks. I mean, it's kind of off the beaten path a little bit. So I'm thinking he must be a guest. And I know that most hotels now have accommodations for pets in certain rooms. So basically the dog stayed in a high-end luxury hotel.
Nice for the
Wonder if
dog.
the dog got its own bed. I don't know. But my point
You
is,
still don't even know if the dog actually walks yet at this point.
I know.
That's right.
I know, which then brings me to our next piece of
Yes.
situation. There are other dog owners
Mm-hmm.
that unfortunately their dogs get old and then their bodies become compromised,
Yes.
and or they get potentially sick earlier in life. Maybe they're 7 or 8 years old as a dog. And now the veterinarian community has evolved to the point where you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars trying to cure a dog of cancer.
Yes.
And as I said earlier, I love dogs, but economically, why would you spend $3,000 on a dog that's going to be miserable and it's not going to increase her life expectancy maybe for more than 6 months or a year? And when you can take that same amount of money,
Buy a new dog.
buy a new dog and buy 2 of them. So I think we're getting out of control with the whole dog thing. And not only
Yeah.
do we see strollers and we see, end of life, money going out the window, but now I think a lot of people have more than one dog in their family.
I do.
I see
Yeah.
people, woman the other day I saw her, she's walking, she has 3 dogs and she's like fighting the 3 leashes and she's getting all tangled up and these dogs are just
Out of control.
out of control. Yeah. And I'm like, she looks like that walking down the street. I can't imagine what the house looks like. Right.
Oh, yeah, right.
So I'm like, what are we doing? And I'll ask you that question first, because then I got more. Because you hit a hot topic for me.
I have 3 dogs, but we got a kind of a farm property, so they have some room. But I'm wondering if it has more to do with the individual and their own selfishness than the animal. For instance, you brought up and we have animals, we love them very much, but my wife is one of those that will sell the house to take care of the animal, and yet the animal is suffering. So if you really love the animal, you wouldn't do that, right? You really wouldn't do it. You're doing it for yourself. You don't want to lose it. The same with the strollers and I don't, if it's a need for attention, or I don't know what that is. That falls under that weird category that some might suggest professional counseling at some point for some of these folks, but they're everywhere, and they're well, maybe I don't want to take anything away from you. They seem to be everywhere now, Jim. They're in the airports, they're restaurant, you name it. That's probably where we're going to go next.
Here's a hot take on some 50 Cups tea.
Green tea is known to have a variety of benefits, as it contains polyphenols, which helps with lowering inflammation in the body. It also contains L-theanine, which is incredible for cognitive function and mood, and catechins, which support a healthy heart. Polyphenol antioxidants work in aiding weight loss, and the antioxidant properties in polyphenols also kill cancerous cells, stopping them from growing, which green tea has the potential to fight cancer.
Visit 50cupstea.com to find out more.
Yeah. So a few years ago,
Yes.
got my nice suit on. I got an early morning flight and got my window seat, which I'm usually on the aisle, but for some reason I did take an aisle seat. And I see this younger male coming down with this massive dog. I mean, he's a German Shepherd,
man.
on steroids almost. And I'm like, what the heck is this guy bringing this dog on? He wasn't a guide dog or anything, but somehow he got permission to bring the dog on. And we can go into guide dogs if you like as well. Not the real guide dogs, like the ones that leave the blind people around, service dogs, but the emotional support dogs.
Yes.
This dog wasn't one of those. Anyhow, as luck would have it,
Next to you.
he's rocking into my row. And the dog's got to be on this guy's lap or sit between his legs. Well, the dog's enormous. So guess what? Dog is slobbering and jumping on my lap, and I got a suit on. And I'm like, I paid for the seat, and I got to share it with the dog.
So what did you say? How did you handle
So I
that?
said, hey, this isn't going to work. And I was super nice about it. And he said, I'm sorry, sir. But she'll be fine once the plane takes off. And thankfully, there were some empty seats. So I just got up and I moved. to a different seat. So then the dog ended up having the entire row to itself for the most part.
Dog
I'm like,
flew
what
first
happened
class.
to going down below in a cage,
Huh.
right?
Yeah.
And then you see all these little dogs that are in these little mini suitcases. And
bird cage type things? Yeah.
And like, as a human, you can't leave your dog with a dog sitter for 3 or 4 days, or you can't put the dog in a kennel for a few days. It's like we're getting crazy with the dogs.
Well, then you gotta find a spot for them. And I noticed at the airport that they have these areas. I guess you take dogs. I
Yes.
guess so. I feel bad for the person who has to clean that up.
Well,
But,
what happens if the dog doesn't get there? What happens if the dog
Well,
just,
right.
I mean, is that
Well, people
sanitarily?
are allergic to animals as well.
Right.
You know, it just now I understand. Well, I don't fully understand, but I understand there may be those rare exceptions where you have an emotional, whatever the service dog or animal is. I mean, they've gotten to goats and horses now. I mean, it's really crazy. They have. Because if you have someone who needs it, I guess I could probably go with that. But at some point, shouldn't they be responsible for buying the role rather
Yeah.
than forcing another passenger to deal with it? I don't know.
Full disclosure, I'm not sure if what I'm going to tell you is actually true or not, but
Right.
I've been told by some people who can apply for an emotional support dog, not a
Mhm.
service dog, but an
Well, I'm sure
emotional
that's
support
abused,
dog.
isn't it?
You just have to go online and fill out a form
That's
and
it.
pay some money, and you get the pink coat or the red coat or whatever it is. I could be 100% wrong, so don't kill me for those 3 listeners that are watching us. But I don't think it's that difficult to get that.
I
And
agree.
my point is, if you are suffering from anxiety and other things, and the dog makes you feel good, that's great. But then I think you're strong enough to probably, if you're willing to take a flight with the dog, you probably could take that same flight without the dog.
Yeah, or take a pill. You know, there
Or
are
drive.
there are sedatives you can take and just
Right.
kind of zone out. Again, I think people are a little selfish at times, and maybe it's more of a crutch than anything, but it doesn't need to happen. But you're right. There was a time none of that was available. You couldn't do it at all, and somehow people survived. And now it's not unusual to see 1, 2, 3 dogs on a flight at any
Right.
given time.
Right.
Never a 110-pound German Shepherd, though, I must say. That's worse than the large passenger walking
Yeah.
down the aisle, isn't it?
I mean, I do give him credit. I don't know how he managed to get that dog on, but he did. And, at the end of the day,
Yeah, but rules, Jim. It comes down to rules. You say service animals, right? There's a rule. It has to provide a certain service, and it's usually for a very small percentage of the population, and it's abused again, like so many other things, right? People taking advantage of the system because they're selfish for whatever reason. Rules were not meant to be broken. It seems as though we now live in a society where the converse is true.
yeah, I think to your point, they're more interested in their own relationship with their dog than they are about the other people around. And I love the allergy example, because there are times when you're on a plane and you have to starve to death because somebody may have a peanut allergy and they won't
Yes.
serve you a snack.
Yes.
Well, why does the same thing hold true with dogs?
Yeah. No, I agree with that. If my kids, or I'm allergic to it and I'm stuffing up, and then it's a miserable flight. Why put somebody through that? But then that comes back to, where's the airline? Where's the airport, or whoever's involved in this kind of stuff? I
Right.
know what they used to call that, Jim. Customer service. Why
No.
would they not look at that,
I gotta
Jim,
take a
and say,
shot of de-stress now.
yeah, it seems to be helping because I'm feeling better, even though the topics have stressed me out a bit. Excuse me, but why aren't they there to say, listen, we have to look at the entire package here and the people that are flying, and this is, unless you can prove with a doctor's note and this rare exception, ain't happening. Instead, it's gone the other way.
Yeah.
So, how's customer service for you, Jim? I've had just terrible experiences lately, and it seems to be getting worse. And this just reminded me of that. How's Jim's life?
Yeah, it's awful.
It is.
To be honest with you. So I have obviously you talked about my tea company, 50 Cups,
Yeah.
50cupstea.com. We are now exclusively online. We got out of the retail business. And as such, when you get out of the retail business, you have to transition out. So for example, I have a security system that I was trying to transfer over to the new occupant of the store. I think I got a bad deal everywhere because all the services that I've used, nobody's wanted. So they must be cheaper or they must be better. I don't know. So nonetheless, I tried to transfer this thing over and they opted to go with a different provider. So I went online. There's nowhere I see anywhere where I can cancel online. So I sent them an email, say, hey, I'm going to cancel. They respond back saying, okay, sorry to hear that. Why? Tell them why. And then I get call us up. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you have no problem signing me up, taking my credit card and putting me on, auto pay. But when it comes time to say goodbye, I got to go through 14 different hoops to say goodbye. And of course, you call them up and you can barely hear the individual. They usually have a 1980 headset, that's on who knows where they're located. It sounds like they're in a tunnel half the time. And they mumble and they don't follow what you want to do. And you've been paying them all along.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, I'm on a roll.
It's all right. Cool.
A lot of these cable TV companies, internet providers,
Mm-hmm.
They reward the new customers.
Yes, they do.
At the expense of the old customers.
Yes, they do.
And I'm on a bank board and they're telling us in these meetings, hey, refer us. We have, 5.5%, money market rates, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, well, what am I getting? I've been with you for 10 years and I got to keep an eye on you all day long because you might start me at 5.5, but you're going to slowly bring me down. Right. So and I said to him, like, why won't you reward the people that are with you as opposed to rewarding new people coming in?
Mm-hmm. And their answer was?
Great question, but we need to get more and more people. And the only way we can get them is if we can offer incentives. I said, but if you're getting the people in, the
What
bucket,
are you losing on the
whole,
backside?
right. You may be filling the bucket with water, but it's all coming out on the other end.
Right.
Because this emphasis is on growth, well, if you're having a hard time growing, it's probably because you're losing some of the customers you have at this point in time.
That
Right?
is so true. And I've been through that myself. And it's infuriating to see somebody get, basically, if let's say it's a cable service of some sort, if they sign up, they're getting it for half the costs that you're paying. And it makes me mad. And the minute I can cancel, I do, and then become a new subscriber somewhere else. And I'm happy for whatever it is, 6 months. And the service is terrible. I mean, and it's not only the long distance calls to some far away land, but even locally. And I bet this is true no matter where you're watching or listening to this. It's your local store. It's your, people that you would, quite honestly, you go, well, they've been around forever. It's a reputable furniture store or whatever it might be. And you're getting just crappy service. It seems to be an epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that to be true as well? And listen, you're the business guy. You run businesses. Why is that happening?
I mean,
Is it the quality of candidates? You can't find people? What?
I think that's a problem. I think it's gotten a little bit better now, but I think that was a problem in the last couple of years. And, a lot of these workers that are hourly wage workers, a lot of them are in college, they're just looking for a job.
Right.
Some are phenomenal, by the way, and then some aren't. And
Right.
and then, I would call it, you have the hourly work class that's maybe not in college but they always seem to be, rightfully so, trying to get to the best opportunity for them personally and for their pocketbook. And so they, in their mind, probably think, well, I'll come in here, I'll make an extra $2 or $3 an hour, but I don't need to change anything, because I'm just going to leave in 2 or 3 months to get more money someplace else.
Right.
So, I mean, eventually that backfires, but you can do that for, 1 or 2 years before everybody knows who you are. And then suddenly you can't get a job anymore because people are, hey, by the way, I know so-and-so worked at that restaurant over there. What was he or she like? So now you're going to get, you're going to end up hurting yourself. But it could just be apathy from the owners too. It's leadership. I mean, it could be just a lot of different things. And quite frankly, the average consumer that's coming in now,
Low expectations?
demand so much sometimes.
Oh, the other way. All right.
And they're not exactly the nicest people in the world.
No, that's
right?
true.
So,
That's true.
and I've seen it, and admittedly, I've been guilty of it every once in a while where, if I don't feel like I'm getting good service, I'm going to speak up. I probably should handle it a little bit better. But, but there are people that just simply walk in and, they got their nose up and, they want to, but when we serve coffee before we got out of retail, somebody said, "Do you have decaf?" Unfortunately, I'm sorry, we don't have decaf. What do you mean you don't have decaf? Like, they start arguing with me. And I'm like, well, we just don't have decaf. I mean, we have decaffeinated tea, which is our herbal teas. And, but from a coffee perspective, we just simply, we're not a coffee shop. We're a tea shop that serves coffee. So, we only have so many
little did
things.
they know. Excuse me, Jim. You were serving them caffeinated so you could take the distressor tea later, building the back sale on the teas. Very good.
Exactly. So I just think it's, the thing that's frustrating though, is that all these companies out there, have their mission statements and their branding. Customers number one for us and everything else. And it really isn't, because if it was, you would make things a lot easier for them, and you would not make it difficult for them to leave a service and or to join a service. I've got a friend of mine the other day. I'd let him use one of our rental properties, for a period of time, and we just went direct with him. We didn't go through anybody, and so he had to pay me, and so he sends me this invitation for this thing called Bill, BILL, where he can pay me through Bill. But the problem with that is it requires me, who's trying to get the money. It'd be so much easier if he just wrote a check and mailed it to me. It takes me about 30 minutes just to sign up. And I had to give him my firstborn and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
And then on top of that, now I'm getting emails every 6 seconds from these people because they want to upsell me.
Sure.
I just want my check.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
So even the technology piece of it is not customer centric in most cases.
No, I try to shy away from that just because of that. It takes too much time. And the other thing they're doing is rounding up would you like to round up? I've asked many times, no, I'd prefer to round down, and they do it, Chip. But I mean, that is so
Imagine
irritating.
that.
What another way for people to say, well, I don't want the change, because people don't care, and it's really not worth all that much,
Right.
I guess, anymore. But there was a time, and I worked in this industry, customer service, whether it was fast food or gas stations or whatever it is. And I always took pride, and Jim, I am not making this up. I'm not. I could run a credit card while I am adding up another order on a cash register, chewing gum, talking on the phone to the boss, all at the same time. At the same time.
It's impressive.
I walked into a store the other day. It was a restaurant, and the people were standing facing the opposite wall, looking at that wall. I thought, what in the world is going on? And then the lady was in there too. And I said, how long have you been standing here? Oh, about 10 minutes. Have they talked to you? No. And I went, hey. And they wouldn't even turn around. I thought, Jim, what's going on here? They were on their phones with the earbuds, and that's what they were doing. So that's the kind of service I see more often than not. So I don't know if I have a bad feeling just about the quality of product coming out of our education system, maybe, and the work ethic. That's the word I'm looking for, the work ethic.
I think it's part of it. I think, customer service isn't a profit center, for companies, unless you're going to retain the consumer. If you're canceling your internet, for example, or your cable TV or what have you. I mean, the other day, because I'm out of retail, I'm trying to sell my POS, and these POS systems are kind of like your cell phone. There's a provider behind it. So the hardware is attached to the provider. So this is a Verizon phone. I can't sell it to you and you go do AT&T on it. Right. Same type of thing, which I kind of knew about it, but I really didn't know it was that rigid. But I have somebody that wants to buy the system and they're willing to go with the same provider. And I'm talking to them on the phone. I'm like, let me put the new vendor in touch with you and you guys can figure it all out, but I need to exit stage left.
Right.
And, well, we can't really do that. Like, why? And they can't give you an answer. I think they just want to sell new hardware all the time and then sign them up for a new deal. And but I'm stuck with this 1-year-old $1,000 to $2,000 system that basically is going to be thrown taken to the dump at some point in time, which is a shame.
Just because you can't sign it.
It's a colossal waste of money and harm to the environment, et cetera, et cetera. But nobody's willing to help out, I guess, at the end of the day.
And I do feel bad a bit for some of the folks because I've had the experience of talking to an individual long distance and having to call back many times. And even though it's a different individual, they all call me Mr. William and read from the same script, same questions, and you can't get past it. They have to follow the steps. So it's pretty tough for them.
Yeah.
Excuse me again. I'm sorry. Anyway, okay, I'm not as stressed anymore though, Jim. Your tea is wonderful. But that is something that maybe it comes from customers demanding more than they are.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. The customer, I think, is being fair in most cases.
Yeah.
I do think there's an increase with certain people, they want more. But I think the blame still is on these companies and the amount of effort and resources they put into customer service.
Well, I agree with you. And that, too, by enforcing laws or rules about dogs. We can go down the list. But
and by the way, when I say dogs, I am mostly talking about dogs, but also cats.
Yeah.
Pets in general.
I've seen parrots in some of these stores.
It's
So
getting out of control.
it's actually the owners of the animals that kind of abuse the system. All right, Jim. Well, I really am kind of mellowed out now. Not that I want to take a nap, but I feel better. But normally we do the hot takes and feeling better. I mean, you got a lot off your chest today. I mean, do you want to maybe end with a kumbaya kind of a moment? Do you have one today for us?
Yeah, as always, there are phenomenal things happening in our community, in the country, and in the world.
Yes.
And I every day, all of us witness, little things. And there's two things that come to mind for me. A few weeks ago, we were down at the beach and it was, I don't know, 7:30 at night, and the tide was starting to come in, and there were a family that's renting a house next to us. Probably had 4 or 5 umbrellas, probably 15 to 20 chairs, and the tide's coming up, and basically the water's taking out all the furniture.
Wow.
And kind of looking around, waiting see if somebody's going to come down. A couple people did walk down, but they just were going for a walk on the beach. So they just came down off the deck and went their way. And so I'm like, well, I better get up and, at least get this stuff out of the way. And as I'm getting up, there's some people walking down the beach that see the same thing I see. And suddenly there's 4 or 5 of us basically cleaning up that part of the beach, putting things not only out of the water line, but also up towards their deck, which is what you're supposed to do at night. And I kind of thought that was kind of cool, where you just had, 4 total strangers just say, okay, well, we don't want
Let's
to
help.
Yeah, let's help these people. And by the way, it was all rental beach chairs and umbrellas. It would have cost these people a fortune if that stuff ended up getting damaged. Right.
Right.
So that was good to see. And then heard another story too of a friend's mom who was driving home, taking a 2.5-hour trip home. And she's 85 years old and developed a leg bleed out of nowhere. She felt like a little scratch on her leg. So she scratched it. And then like a couple minutes later, she must have hit a vein. She's got thin skin. So she was bleeding profusely out of her leg, and she's driving. So thankfully she, is able to pull over into one of those gas stations with, a big store attached. And so she's, she has no bandages in the car. She has no, tissues or anything like that. And, she's gets out, and she's basically a bloody pulp at that point in time. And 2 people, strangers, see her and come over, and they put her back in the car. They go in and buy Band-Aids and bandages and napkins and everything else. And basically they wrapped her up and stopped the bleeding and everything else, so she could, get back on the road. So there's hope out there, but there's also a lot of things that are going on every single day where we're all good and we're all united. And, but I'm sure we're all aggravated by some of the dog things that are going on, some of the customer service stuff that's going on.
Not so much anymore after the tea, but yes. And, you get so much of the social media where you have the guy filming the other guy running from a man with a hatchet and won't intervene. It's nice to know that. And I think it's more often than not, complete strangers will risk even their own lives to help another stranger. And I think that still exists. And that's good. That makes me feel good to know that they're out there. Hopefully they're my next door neighbor, because you never know. I do some silly things sometimes. So, Jim, the tea was delicious today. Absolutely. And I do feel better. I feel, seriously, I feel much more calm. I'm not just joking about it. How do people get a hold of your tea? And, you know, the beauty of the tea is not only is it good, but you like this is a distressor, but you have all kinds of teas for all kinds of different health concerns, really.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the easiest simple thing to do is you can just go to our website, 50cupstea.com, and order, and we'll get it to you within 2 or 3 days. If you want it bagged, we can bag it. If you want it loose leaf, we can loose leaf it. In fact, this month we have an August special. If you buy 500 grams of green loose leaf tea, we will give you a Kinto stainless steel teapot, basically,
cool.
where you put the loose leaf in the metal cylinder, and that allows it to steep in the pot itself. And then you could pour it out and drink it. And you could also pour it out into a big container like this and chill it. But that's free. And it's basically a $40 value that we're giving away if you buy the green tea this month. Green tea has got significant health benefits. It is caffeinated, but it's great for you. And it also tastes great mixed with other things, hot, cold, whatever. It's a very versatile tea.
I understand you allow pets, right? Since the
beauty of online is, yes, you can drink tea
you can
with
have
your
an
pet
elephant in your
anywhere
room. You don't
want.
care, do
That's
you?
right. No, it's all good.
Jim,
all
thanks
good.
as always, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Have a great one.
appreciate the hot takes.
Thanks for joining us on Hot Takes 50 Cups. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to visit our website at 50cupstea.com for more great content and delicious organic teas, and listen and watch us on all the leading platforms. Stay connected with us on Instagram at 50cupstea, YouTube, and TikTok. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends. Until next time, keep sipping and stay united.